Okay, we have Michaela Barton with Faded Hearts. And so this is a casual game. So go ahead, Michaela. Let's hear your pitch.
All right. So my game is Faded Hearts. This is my lovely logo. I'm actually very happy with it.
It's magical.
So my overview, the title is Faded Hearts. The audience would be like teens. So the premise of the game is basically that the kingdom's life-giving crystal has gone dark and the land is kind of being sapped of its energy. So you have to group up with other adventurers or other people to solve the mystery and also build up relationships like with your team. Um, the gameplay would be more visual novel-ish and like point and click. The genre is fantasy adventure, romance, and slight action. Platforms, I said mobile and tablets, but it's most likely just going to be like tablet compatible. Um, your objectives and goals would be to make meaningful connections with your party members, and that can even extend into like a romantic relationship with them. And then you have to solve the mystery that plagues the kingdom. Some of the challenges would be to unlock characters' romance routes, and there are requirements. Romance is, in fact, completely optional in this game. Raise your stats like charm and smarts to pass checks and build your character's personality, and then make your way through the kingdom and find clues and solutions to help you move on.
All right.
So early concept art, I basically just needed like characters, all the environments, um, props. So like that would be specific arms and armor for different characters and their upgrades. Environments would be like their living spaces where you would meet them. Um, Areas just found throughout the story and a day-night cycle. Characters would basically just include the sprites for your party members and special event scenes and poses. And so most of my early concepts focused around character design. These would essentially just be characters that you would encounter throughout the story and recruit to your party.
Those stormy eyes there, huh?
So I have my overall game benchmarks. The first one was The Arcana by Nyx Hydra. It's more of like a visual novel game. There isn't a lot of like animation to it. It's mostly static images, like you're reading a book, but it's also more interactive in which you get to choose routes and choices regarding like dialogue and actions. Then I had Okami by Capcom. I didn't want to do entirely like this style of gameplay, um, but I wanted to do like maybe interesting side quests and characters, the nice fleshed out backgrounds, the day-night cycle. And then my final benchmark was Fire Emblem Three Houses by Nintendo. I would, of course, not be doing such a 3D style, but maybe more rendered, since it would focus less on animation and more on just the static images. And then the similarity I would like to do would be characters needing like stat requirements to interact and develop relationships. And here are all of my other benchmarks on one page, just so they don't clutter up the whole slideshow. So I have my logo benchmarks, the environment benchmarks, character benchmarks, props, which all ended up being different things, and then the GUI benchmarks. So first is my logo. The first one that I did had this like scripty flat font with the glowing crystal behind it. Um, I was advised though that some of the letters were a little confusing with this particular font. So with the last two, I found one that was a bit more clear. This one I had experimented with doing a shape behind the words just to help them pop out a little bit. And then this one I experimented with doing perhaps a different image behind the entirety of the logo. In the end, I ended up keeping the crystal and I modified the font a little bit to have like these little extended pieces, and added particle effects around the crystal to give it more of a magical feeling, since this is a fantasy game. Early stages of my environment development, I did a bunch of thumbnails, which include architectural and like more natural environments. So I have like a sitting room and like a potion shop here for number 9. Number 6 is a village. And then the rest of these are like either foresty or just like valleys or caves. And then I moved forward with number 2 and number 7 to start, and I fleshed those out a little bit more. And then I did the environment overlaid with the GUI and a character in their dialog box to make sure it was still reading all right, because this is how it would look in the game. And then my final environment, I went with that magical spring with the butterflies and fireflies around it. The spring would like continuously purify itself. It's kind of like those fancy fountains you can get that continuously cycle their own water. Um, this is overall a nighttime shot, so like it wouldn't quite look like this during the day. And then moving on to characters, I decided to focus on the earlier Dragonkin character. And I just kind of fleshed out some silhouettes, experimenting with different features like thinner or thicker tails, shorter tails, different horn styles, different hair. I believe ultimately I went forward with number 10 as just an overall design choice, and then decided to do some poses for him. These were the initial colored sketches. There's not really a lot to them currently. And then once I lined it, I decided to shift his color palette a little bit just to take a look at what other maybe cooler colors would look on him. Ultimately, though, I went with the warmer color palette just because the dragon symbolism and the fire aspect seemed like it made more sense. So I added more details to that, and I added some particle effects. And then his final sheet includes a couple of his silhouettes, the early sketches, the final design for him, and a little bit of a description of him in which he is basically viewed as the guardian of this mountain above a village, but people aren't really sure how he got there or what he's doing there, and even he's not entirely sure of that. Like, he has no memory of ever arriving at this mountain um or like how he even just got around there. Then moving into props, I did a couple of different variations on a couple of different things. So I did like spears, and then I tried clothing, and then these were supposed to be like things that would hang on a chain, like on a necklace. Eventually, I moved forward and in some more monochrome explorations of props 2, 6, and 8. So the one spear, the outfit, and then the pendant. And then I decided, instead of rendering every single one of these, I just moved forward with the spear with some level up options. So this is the initial look of that when I was trying to envision what color palettes it would use and like what metals would signify like progress in the level up. So then my final props are the 3 spears, and they progress from like a copper color to silver to gold, each with slight variations in their designs to indicate their growth. So this would just be the starting spear. And then as you upgrade it, it ends up with these like little gems in the top that would probably aspect it. Like this would be non-aspected. This would introduce some kind of power to it. And then the final level up is completely gold. The gems are fully awakened and are glowing, and it has this bit of a ribbon to it. And this one would probably be like the full power of the weapon unlocked. So then I did a couple of GUI mockups. This is the initial very simple GUI. This would show up anywhere in the game. The only thing I didn't include here was the dialog box, which in hindsight probably would have been a good idea. So then you would just end up tapping this hamburger menu here, and it would bring you to this one. It'll introduce a drop-down menu, and it will allow the player to traverse their inventory and a menu of their party members. So from top to bottom, they would go to their weapons, their armor, valuables and gifts, potions, miscellaneous items, and then their party member menu. But the player will be able to get to any item screen regardless of which icon they choose first. And the party menu is a separate screen from the inventory. So say they tap the sword, it would bring them here. And the screen that they're currently on would be indicated by the corresponding icon glowing. And they would be able to choose any of these screens and move on from here if they would like, or they could tap the icon of the weapon that they want, and upon doing that, it will bring up the full view of the item that they tapped on, and it will give it a small description. So like this is the name of the weapon, and then it would give the attack stats, the damage type, and the element, and then a small description of it, and then at the bottom it would indicate whether or not the item or weapon is upgradable. And I did a little bit of experimentation with the universal design. I'm actually relatively happy with how it turned out in the color blindness mode. I'm particularly excited about just the contrast of the weapon to the background. I think it looks really great.
It really does. It's actually kind of surprising that that blue is turning so purple to me, but that's really interesting. It's got the yellow within it or something, but it's really standing out. Really nice job. Seeing the all of those assets in the GUI just pop exactly the way we need. It's wonderful, Michaela.
Yes, it was very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I was very nervous about putting it into color blindness because sometimes the results are not quite what you want them to be.
Yeah.
And then my monetization. This game will include an in-app store to allow purchases of platinum, which is a special in-game currency that can be used to access paid dialogue choices that will usually lead to exclusive splash art and scenes of dialogue with each particular character, depending on the route that you pick. The prices would range from $199 for 100 to $19.99 for 1200. And then a small footnote here, the paid choices don't affect the player's ending or their relationship with the character they choose. They're literally just for like completionist value or for fun.
Right, and it just gives another extra
Yes. Gives
thing
maybe
to
more
love to look at.
story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
And then my contact information, you can come say hi on any of these platforms. I am Lavender Lyrium on Tumblr, and I am AylaGirl97 on Instagram.
Awesome. Okay, well, congratulations,
Thank you.
Very nice. Let's go back to one of the full screen layouts of your choice there. Do you have one with a character and the environment stuff and GUI? Do you have a full layout page?
I unfortunately do not.
Mm-hmm.
I did most of these relatively separately.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the future I will have to combine them to make sure they're all still working together all right.
Mm-hmm. Do you, well, why don't you go to like page 19? Looks like one of the more completed images, right? Great. Okay, so let's talk about graphic user interface and how this is functioning. I think you had a really good description in terms of the path that someone would take as we click through that. Adam, what do you think about each of these little assets? What we kind of ran this test the other day, and I think that you might not have been in that individual breakout room because I think it was China and I. So Adam, I'm going to put this out to you. What do you think each of those items is? The top one.
Are you talking about the ones to the left?
Yeah, the white one's the one that's highlighted. Which one is that?
Weapon. Then the next one is armor. The next one is sort of key items or sort of like collectibles. The next one would be like, I guess, consumables or potions in this case, and the last one would be sort of like, I think, like story based items
Mm-hmm.
that, so it's not just in a random spot in the UI, it's there for the player that if they need to use something that corresponds to the story, it's right there in that area.
All right. Thank you, Adam. So Michaela, how did Adam do in terms of where you were wanting someone to understand?
Really well. The only one, and I knew this would cause confusion, is this key. I wasn't sure what else to use for it. It's just supposed to be miscellaneous items that don't fit into a certain category, but I might retcon the idea of that being key items for the story.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe.
yeah. That actually is fun because it's very story propelled, right?
hmm
That's really nice, Adam. All right. So my next question, I'll put this out to Eden then. What are these elements and what do you see these being in game?
I think those are the different types of weapons. Like there's like long range, or there's ranged, and then there's like well, that one's a spear. There's like I guess you don't have like like melee ranged, but it's like a bow, a spear, a long sword, a dagger, and um crap, what is it? A staff as the very bottommost one.
Because we're just
I
seeing the
believe.
tip of it. Is that right? Like the spear. Michaela, is Eden on it?
Yes, that's completely correct. It would
That's
just
great.
indicate what type of item or what type of weapon it would be.
Okay, that's fantastic. And then to Jake.
Bill and I go for a walk.
Okay, see you later, Bill. And then to Jake, underneath where we've got Dragon Spear, it says ATK 12, damage type piercing, element none. Does that feel connected with games that you play and the story that Michaela has crafted there?
Oh, I was muted. Yeah, Michaela was talking about how mine was professional, but this is so professional. Like it feels straight out of a video game.
Thank you.
Like even like the text screams RPG.
Also, Aaron, yeah, your blue lion's so.
Yeah, it really, it's very legible. I like that the font feels connected with your storyline. Tell me what ATK means.
Attack.
Okay, and the rest of you, did you understand that?
Yeah, that's
Yep.
normally the abbreviation
It's
for,
just a standard.
yeah.
Mhm.
There's like an entire sort of like shortened up version of like attack, defense, magic,
Mhm.
speed, stuff like that.
Mhm.
It's like standard now.
Yeah, and in terms of Michaela, the confusion on that key star element either being miscellaneous or key elements in the story, when we click on it, we will understand what it is. It's just helpful to have as many people understand what the item is as possible. I think you've done a really fantastic job on it, on that whole thing.
Thank you.
So, Go up to the so we get to choose wardrobe, like on page 14. We get some choices, right? That will also come up in that graphic user interface like you had on page 19.
Yes, it would
So they
be
would be in the
this
square.
tab here.
I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then they would show up here.
Right. And they would have different descriptions that would give us different power-ups too, right?
Yes, and it would also indicate like which character they belong to. I would probably just take this small idea here and like give a character a specific symbol so you don't, or so you know where they're going.
And so we're picking from a lot of weapons, but this is also sort of a dating sim or a conversation game too. So how does it intersect in terms of a game where we're connecting with somebody with sort of this interrelational sensual field, not always romantic, and the fighting? When do the two happen? Are they always just ending in bad divorces?
No. So I guess I probably could have included this as a benchmark. I was thinking more along the lines of like a Dragon Age game in which they have like the overarching story and adventure, and if you would like to build relationships with your inner circle, then that is completely fine. And it would net you like different conversations, maybe different items from said party member if you get a high enough relationship with them. And then since this is also kind of an adventure story, there would be combat at some point.
Okay, yeah. Okay, and go back to, I think page 13 has your character, your final character painting. So here he's using hand tactics. Is that also an option to fist-to-fist combat as opposed to always grabbing ranged weapon of some kind?
Honestly, I didn't consider it, but I think it would probably also be an option if you wanted to train a character in like unarmed. Like maybe they have like a hidden proficiency that you can unlock later on.
Right, right. So this character seems very like it's got a lot of magic elements and mystical. And if you go up to the top, your first concepts and the one where the character is in front of so scroll up a bit in your slides. That one,
Here.
slide 9. This one, does he like, do characters end up leveling up to have these kind of magical elements that they use as powers?
Not necessarily. I would think in this world, when it comes to magic, you would either have to be born with it or go through some sort of like trial or something to obtain it.
So it's just the type of character that we had then.
Yes.
Cool. And how do you all, I'll put this out to Anna, what do you think of the way that the graphic elements, the swirls, the hamburger element, all of that fits on the page with the way that she's designed the characters and environments?
I think it's really unobtrusive, so you can get immersed in the game, but obviously you know where it's at, so you can always jump right back to it.
Yeah.
The only thing that's like kind of messing with me is that it's on the left, and a lot of the times, like when you're looking for menus and stuff, it's on the right because that's how we read. But I mean, that's not really a big deal with how like well everything fits together.
Do you have a page where you have that background in the tablet, right? Can you go to that?
Yes.
And that has that. My only thought is that it might not stay black in this setting. A lot of times when you're using, like if you go to page 18, it's well, I guess here it's black, so that does make sense. Yeah. Okay. I like it. I'm going to take back my idea to push it lighter.
I'm going to be the
elements. Go ahead, Jake.
I'm going to be the devil's advocate here for Susan and say that I think it would be better if it was white, because then you click it and all the white icons drop down.
Okay.
And especially if it glowed like the sword is glowing. It just led to like the whole theme of the game.
Just more magical. Yeah, I think that would be, I would like to see that explored, and I think that would maybe match the theme a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I can definitely do that.
Well, Michaela, you've done a fantastic job. Your logo, just go back to that beautiful logo, is beautiful. What were some of the things that you really feel like you're taking away from this project in the rest of your work as you continue?
Definitely how to like lay out things and like to think about everything that would go into a game,
Mm-hmm.
because like concept art is what I want to go into.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a big class for me in learning how to like lay everything out and how to push myself to do different things, because like before this, this whole stage of the project was a big struggle for me because I don't do backgrounds very often. I
Yeah.
usually do a gradient or a solid color behind my characters.
Yeah, I would encourage all of you as you continue forward to continue to do a lot of backgrounds. That's really so much of what concept art is doing backgrounds, the logos, the graphic user interface. That's what we're used for more really than the characters, because there's less characters than there is of those things. So Michaela and to everybody, finding a game company to put this in front of would be part of your next step. Find, like you've got benchmarks there. Let's go back to that benchmark page. I was at 5 or 4. Send them your pitch. Find some smaller companies that are within this realm to send your pitch to too, because you might find that those are going to be the companies that you would be starting at. So I encourage you to put your stuff out there. Michaela, it looks like you might not have been on ArtStation yet if you're going for concept art.
I do not have an ArtStation.
That might be a summer job to do for homework. Of course, I'm going to hand you homework to do for the summer. You did a fantastic job, and thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you.